Hello, my name is Brian Friedland, and welcome to another episode of Inside the GSC. Today I'm interviewing Montevallo's Director of Media Relations, Blake Jowers. Blake has been around the Gulf South Conference since he was an undergraduate student. He worked for West Alabama's athletics department and as the sports information coordinator here at the GSC before making his way to Montevallo. He will talk about working behind the scenes of college athletics, his time at the GSC, and more. All right, so we have another episode of Inside the GSC. Today we have a very special guest joining us who used to work at the Gulf South Conference as a sports information coordinator, and now he's over at University of Montevallo as the Director of Media Relations. This is Blake Jowers. Blake, thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Happy to be on.
Awesome. And so we'll get into this one. So before we get started, I just want to reach out and see, I know technically SIDs don't get as much of a break as some of the student athletes and coaches do over the summer, but how does it feel to be done with the athletic school year and just getting ready for the next one?
Oh, it's such a relief. It really is. Yeah, like you said, there's not really much of a break. I mean, your sports end and you go straight into award season, and then baseball has 7 million different organizations, so they have 6 million different award seasons. So it's still a lot. It can be a headache sometimes, especially man down like our office is at the moment. But yeah, it's nice to get a little bit of a break. Finally have weekends again, you know. But at the same time, you do kind of miss it a little bit. You do kind of miss watching your athletes go out there and play and win the awards and represent your school. So it's a good feeling to have a little bit of time to relax, but also ready for sports to start back.
Well, there you go. There you go. And so we'll start diving into your path a little bit. So I was wondering, how did you get to Montevallo? And did you always know that you wanted to get into sports in the first place?
Yeah, I always had a love for sports. Growing up, I grew up in a basketball family. We were all big basketball fans, which is a strange thing to say, especially being from the state of Alabama. You know, you would think everybody bleeds Alabama or Auburn football, but in my house, it was always Alabama basketball. So I've always had a love for sports. One of my earliest and favorite memories of sports, I just talked about how we weren't really big football fans, but this is a football memory, was the Tyrone Pro Throw hands behind the head catch. And that just kind of sealed my love for sports. Working my way to Montevallo, it was kind of it's a weird kind of experience because Montevallo was always kind of indirectly connected to me. I mean, I grew up in Livingston, Alabama, where a conference member of West Alabama is. So throughout my childhood, I mean, I spent a lot of weekends going to UWA football games or watching the basketball team in Pruitt Hall, not knowing that Montevallo was also a member of that conference. So it was kind of weird once I got to the GSC, learning that this two schools were connected. I grew up in Livingston, so I ended up staying around for college. So I went to West Alabama, graduated with a degree in integrated marketing communications, which really set me up with a lot of different skills that tied in really perfectly with SID work, writing, creative skills, photography, things like that. And then towards the end of my senior year of school, right after I graduated, right before COVID hit, so things kind of got crazy. But right after I had graduated, I started a post-grad internship with the SID department at UWA and really focused on video creation, shooting highlight reels for most of their sports. And then COVID hit in that spring, so I got to shoot like maybe 2 baseball games, and then the world shut down. So then just kind of made do during COVID, working odd jobs here and there. And then I saw that the GSC was actually hiring a coordinator for media. And I give my dad credit for this all the time because I was searching for jobs. I was looking to get into the sports field and didn't really know where to start. So I saw that they were actually hiring for the commissioner role. And so my dad told me, I know you're underqualified for this, but go ahead and apply. You never know what's going to happen. And so I applied, and a few days later, I get an email back saying, "Hey, you're not really qualified for this position, but we also have this position, the coordinator role." So if I had never applied for that job that I was underqualified for, I would have never had the opportunity to be the coordinator at the conference. And then from there, I learned my way around the conference, learned all the different schools. And then about midway through my time there, I started learning that Montevallo was looking for people. And I knew that I wanted to stay close to home. I wanted to stay in the South. I really love this area. I love the people. So when Montevallo's position opened up, and it seemed like the perfect opportunity for me. It seemed like a great opportunity for me to learn sports that I had no idea, really, honestly, that even existed, like lacrosse. I had never watched a lacrosse game before I came, honestly, to the GSC. I saw my first women's lacrosse game there, and then when I came to Montevallo, I picked up the men's game, and I found a love for lacrosse. I mean, I watched the PLL like almost all summer, so it's a lot of fun. It's a weird roundabout path, but that honestly didn't really go very far distance wise. But is had its twists and turns, and I'm glad to be where I'm at.
Yeah, there you go. And what's that old Wayne Gretzky quote? You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So you
Yeah,
never take a shot at the GSC. Who knows what happens? So
right,
that's
right.
awesome. And then, so how important was it during your undergrad and even when you started touching on post grad before you got to the GSC? How important was it to kind of get that SID experience before you even got to the conference office and then eventually now where you're at with Montevallo?
Um, Getting that experience at UWA, it really opened my eyes to what an SID actually does. Because before then, I didn't really know that an SID was a position, you know? I always just kind of assumed that teams did their own thing. Like, I knew like somebody at the department kept the stats and updated the websites, but I didn't really know what an SID was or what they did. So that experience at UWA working with their SIDs there, it really opened my eyes to really the man behind the curtain, you know? Because without that, I'd have never known that SIDs are the ones, at least at this level, are the ones that are running the stream, running the stats, running the scoreboard, doing almost everything to make sure that the game actually happens, except for making sure the teams are there. So getting that experience from UWA is really helpful, and then moving on to the GSC, that really opened my eyes to the website maintenance, and then really coordinating across the league with different SIDs. So that experience has been invaluable in my position. It really helps to me getting into Montevallo, knowing the league, knowing the rules, knowing how the nomination processes work, postseason things. Yeah, already having that relationship built in with some people that I had contact with at the GSC and now contact with as a full-time SID.
Okay, gotcha. And then, so as we talked about a little bit at the beginning already, where you're not necessarily getting a break now that you're out of championship season, it's award season now, and then you have a little bit of the summer, but then the fall sports are coming back. So
Right.
kind of, and everybody talks about coaches, athletes, they're studying film, they're doing off-season training. So I kind of want to flip this around. What does off-season training look like for you as an SID?
Well, first off, it's a lot of cleanup work. So like record books, updating athletes' bios, updating the website, and then once we get through all of that stuff, it's really planning for the next year. Like, how are we gonna run our media days this year? What kind of content are we planning to create? Are we planning to do holiday events? So at this point, our off season, preseason, whatever you want to call it, is really, we're still in the meat of our record books right now. But we're moving more into start some conversations about what kind of events we want to do, what kind of content we want to create, how we're going to branch out into some more long form content. Some of the things that we did this past year that we really liked and want to carry over. Some of the things that we did this past year that didn't really work the way we wanted them to. Trying to kind of clean up and make sure that our department is as efficient as possible. just because of the number of sports we have. We have to be able to balance that, do your stats, do your everyday SID stuff, but also now that we've branched out more into this creative content side, keeping up with that sort of thing. So right now, it's a lot of trying to figure out how to balance that. How can we take steps forward in our content side without risking what we do on the everyday things? So it's a lot of planning and it's a lot of historical research.
Gotcha. And then just following up to that too, I know like there's a number of SIDs there was a big convention last week over in Orlando, but there's different seminars that you can go to for professional development as an SID. So have you had a chance to go to any of those, and have they been helpful to you in just in your short time at Montevallo?
Oh, I didn't get to go to the one this past year in Orlando, but I did get to go to the one last summer in Las Vegas, and that experience was invaluable. I mean, you at the CSC conference, I mean, you meet people who are doing your same job in different schools, in different situations, with different sports setups, and at different levels, D1, D2, D3, JUCO. So you get all of these, it's a real meeting of the minds, you get all of these different experiences that you can absorb and take home and bring back to your department, and really kind of take the knowledge that other people have and try and apply it as best as you can to your university and make your product as best as possible. The CSC conference, I still have my notes that I reference all the time. I mean, we're more than a year out since I went, and I still look at those notes all the time. Met a lot of people, made some really good connections there. Um, yeah, that experience, it really is something that every SID should look into. I mean, they offer you great resources. It's a great time. And then I actually was a participant in the design contest last year. Yeah, they do a lot of really good programs and really good seminars. They also have the mentorship program and things like that. That aspiring SIDs or GAs or young professionals should really look into. That experience is gonna help you a lot more.
Right, and I feel like too with those types of conferences or conventions, you get so many different opinions where it's kind of like there's approaches that you're like, I never even thought about doing this because we're at
Right,
Division two, but it's like just because you're at a different division doesn't mean you can't apply things to your own level. So I feel like
right.
that exactly, it's invaluable to be able to
Hmm.
go and hear all those different opinions. And then kind of getting into this next part too, like I think everybody talks about it, and I'm sure you had to go through it when you were at Montevallo, but the job market in general is just, it's very tough. It doesn't matter what industry you're in, but sports, it's very competitive. And
Hmm.
it's a lot of people are looking kind of for that niche to stand out because there's so many people, but very limited supply of schools and teams or wherever you want to end up. So I was wondering, do you have any advice for young professionals who are looking to kind of carve out a role for themselves and make themselves stand out when they're going to apply for jobs or, trying to get experience in this field?
Um, the main thing that I would say to a person looking to break into the field, especially if you're at a position where you're a GA or work heavily with the sports information department at a university or with a professional team, is to try and become a primary contact for a sport. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like, I wouldn't suggest you take football if you're a first semester GA, but like being the primary contact for something like cross country or track and field, some sports that are a little less labor intensive, but also give you that experience of connecting with coaches, building that relationship, coordinating with them on schedules and rosters, awards, voting, things like that. So becoming a primary contact, or at least or even a secondary contact, like just having that relationship where you are working directly with a team and coaches is going to set you apart from most applicants. And then also another thing that I would look into is your creative skills using Adobe products, Photoshop, Illustrator, InDesign, those things. There are a lot of companies out there like Box Out and Gipper that can kind of handle your everyday graphic design needs, but there will be times where You'll need to make game notes or Hall of Fame productions or things like that. So learning that, having that experience of working in the Adobe suite and being creative, and then also just kind of branch out, get your toes wet in photography and video. Just try and make if you're looking to break into the field, try and make yourself as well rounded as you can possibly be. Because especially at smaller levels, D2, D3, JUCO, NAI, you're doing it all. You're doing stats. You're the photographer when you're going to away games. You're shooting hype videos if you have a video board in your arena. You're keeping the stats. You're having to create player of the week and player of the year graphics. Like there are a lot of different fields that SIDs branch into, and having experience in all of those or some of those is really going to set you apart.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that's kind of something that like I've always prided myself on, just trying to break in where I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, I don't know, like coming into this job, it was like I know some InDesign, I know some Photoshop, but I'm going to have to learn it if I keep going in there. So it's kind of like something you just have to, in your free time, you just have to look at it and sit there and be like, okay, I can keep learning stuff. Maybe I don't go out and buy the whole package for ungodly amounts, but I can play around with a free trial or something, or I can take notes on their
Yeah,
website. But you just got to do something in your free time because at the end of the day, it's no different than a coach or a player trying to get better. It's just
right.
different skill set.
It's watching film, it's lifting weights, like it's practice. So
Right,
yeah.
right, exactly. And this is getting more into like the lifestyle of an SID. And I know I've gotten to being in the conference office, you get to see all sorts of SIDs through the schools that are here, and it's a very taxing side of it. As you talked about, it's the person behind the curtain. It's a person who making sure that everybody's doing their job on game days, and running the website, running social, especially at the D2 level. And so I
Mhm.
was wondering, how do you maintain a good work-life balance, especially during championship season when it goes crazy?
That's the hard part. I mean, that's a lot of the reason why, or one of the main reasons why there's so much turnover in this field is because of burnout. I mean, sometimes like there was one day my first year, it was all road games, but we had 9 different games that day. And our other SID was out at the time. It was only me and another guy, and he was out that day at a wedding. So I covered 9 sports that day. So I mean, it can be a lot. It can weigh on you. But the thing you got to remember though is you're working a lot of nights and weekends. So take some time earlier in the week. Like during the springtime, what I usually do is I'll work from home on Mondays or come in later on a Tuesday or a Thursday. Trying to carve out time for yourself is huge in this business because it's so easy to get burnt out. So that's what I try to do. I try to take time for myself when things like, especially in the springtime, that crossover February, March season, that crossover season, trying to find days in the middle of the week, like a Tuesday or a Wednesday where there's nothing going on. And the only thing that's really important is putting out an awards release. Trying to take those days and work from home or take some time off. Really just the main thing is just trying to find that time. I mean, you're going to work a lot of nights and weekends. That's just the nature of sports. I mean, so it's hard to do, but it's definitely something that's a must.
For sure. And like, yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, it doesn't matter what level you're at in sports. Like, you're going to have to work a game day that's on a Saturday. Like, if you're working for the
Hmm.
Celtics, you're working for the Raiders, whoever it is. Like, it can be
Yep.
pro, college, minor league, whoever it is. It's just that's just sports for you. But yeah, I feel like that's something that doesn't get touched on enough. Is just like the burnout and how to deal with that.
Hmm.
So I appreciate you letting the viewers know about that because it's an underrated aspect that it's just
Yeah.
it happens, but sometimes you just got to power through it, and there are
Hmm.
different ways to handle it. So,
Yeah.
um, and it And it's going back to championship season. I know just from the conference office, like getting everything set up, it's very hectic. And obviously, you've gotten to be a part of that when you were here. But what are some of the problem, or not necessarily problems, but challenges that you face on the campus level? Because as you were talking about, there's one weekend where you're covering 9 sports during conference season. So, what are
Right.
some of the challenges that come up during a championship season on the campus level?
So I'll kind of touch on my experience from this past year. Our women's soccer team tied their best ever finish. I mean, they made it to the NCAA regional championship game, the Sweet 16, just the far tied for the farthest they've ever made it in a national tournament. And so during that, I mean, obviously that postseason starts with conference postseason, and in the GSC, that first conference tournament game is hosted by one of the top four seeds, and we hosted that first game. And so it's the first challenge was um, creating that championship atmosphere here at home, getting fans there, making sure we have halftime entertainment and concessions and things like that. Um, Really kind of trying to create that championship atmosphere. And then we move on to the semifinals and the finals in Huntsville. And then, I'm traveling with the team, so I'm having to work on basketball preseason stuff in the hotel room in between soccer games, and trying to make sure that all my other sports are still covered while trying to highlight this championship run that we're on. And then going into the NCAA tournament, we had to go down to Melbourne, Florida, to play in the Southeast or South Regional, um, hosted by Florida Tech. So we flew out on a Thursday morning and left town on that Wednesday night, and that whole weekend we had four different basketball games. So I'm sitting here trying to cover a basketball recap sitting in the airport, you know. So it's and then obviously getting down there and covering the games and working with the host SIDs to make sure everything is situated, make sure they're all good. Yeah, the hardest part, the biggest challenge with championship season is trying to cover your teams in the championships as best as you can, while also not letting the sports that are just starting or still in their regular season, not letting your responsibilities slip with them. Because it's easy to kind of get your priorities a little mixed up there, because obviously you've got someone who's competing for a ring and some another team that is just starting. So the biggest challenge is trying to make sure that all teams are covered equally, and then leaving campus and making sure that in your absence everything is going to go as it needs to and as planned.
For sure. And I feel like that's like the time too, especially during crossover season where like organization is so important. It's like that's why people have planners and all and reminders or whatever, because something can just get swept under the rug. It's human nature. We're not going to remember
Hmm.
everything that's happening. So
Yeah.
and then I want to segue a little bit into your experience over here at the conference office, because I feel like that is something unique to your career path where you're able to directly come from the conference office and then contribute at a member institution. So I was wondering, did you have a favorite memory from working at the GSC?
Favorite memory was probably the GSC golf championships. Um, we actually, I went down with Commissioner Wilson and the other intern at the time. His name was Freddie. But yeah, we went down to cover the event, and went the day before because of the practice round and everything. And once we got everything set up, ready to go, got through the coaches meeting and everything, got practice rounds started. Me and Freddie actually got to go out and play the course, and it was great. It was a really nice course. The GSC hosts a really good golf championship. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, that's probably my favorite memory. An actual favorite work memory would probably be working the GSC basketball tournament at Samford, working in the broadcast room, learning really how a Division I school's broadcast operates. That was really cool, and plus I'm a huge basketball fan. I mean, you can see the basketball back here. I've got one on top of my desk. I'm a basketball guy. I can't get enough of it. So working that tournament, it was great. I can't thank the GSC enough for that experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, the basketball tournament's one of my favorite memories too, just from my, just from my experience. I'm
Yeah.
not even done here yet. So that's awesome. That's awesome. And then, so I was wondering too, how did the GFC prepare you? Because obviously we've touched on it a little bit, but how did it prepare you for now your full-time life as an SID?
Well, the main thing was really learning how to coordinate with other SIDs. In my position there, and I believe you still do the same kind of way. Um, I was over a lot of the Player of the Weeks voting, so really sending out all of the information that they would need, and making sure that votes are getting in on time, and if we're missing anything, things like that. Yeah, that was the biggest thing was really coordinate with other teams. And then before then, I didn't have any experience working on the back end of a website. So learning my way through sidearm at the GSC, it set me up for success here. Um, and then obviously building that relationship with the GSC office, and learning the operating manuals and awards processes, things like that. So learning from the conference really set me up well to thrive here and be successful here at Montevallo, especially with that relationship that I've built with the conference office.
Gotcha. And then kind of following up to that, I know you touched on, obviously we've touched on your experience at West Al before you got to the GSC, but when you went from the GSC to Montevallo, did you have any learning curves? Like, was there one big learning curve that you had once you got to this position as a full-time SID, or was it kind of seamless because of what you had gone through at the GSC and West Al?
There were actually kind of two learning curves. The first was really statistics. I had never really worked in that before getting here, so that took a little while for me to learn. But I mean, for somebody coming into this position, I mean, you love sports. Like you're sitting at your house doing nothing, and you have ESPN on, and it's Premier League soccer or Wimbledon. You're watching sports. If it's a ball and somebody's running, you're watching it. So having that kind of experience, watching other sports and kind of that understanding of how the games work, really helped me quickly pick up on the statistics. And then the other learning curve that I had to do was how to work with coaches and athletes, because there was that little bit of a disconnect there at the GSC office. You're not really liaising directly with coaches except for a handful of times at championship sites, but the majority of it is working with administrators and other SIDs around the league. So learning how to navigate those relationships. Coaches can be coaches. I mean, they want the best for their team, and they're not going to settle for less. And sometimes you have to talk them off the ledge. So it learning how to create and balance those relationships and give them what they want while also not overextending yourself. Um, those were the two biggest challenges that I had coming from the GSC to Montevallo. But yeah, being around the league, learning how it worked, learning all the people, it really set me up for success here.
Gotcha, gotcha. And so now we'll wrap up the interview. I just have a few fun questions for you. So,
Okay.
so if you had the chance to work, and this could be any championship, but pro or college, championship, what would you choose and which sport would you do?
Men's Final Four.
Okay. All right.
No doubt.
That'd be a fun one to work, I feel like, because
Oh yeah.
there's always something crazy that's happening in March.
hmm And plus, it
And then
would be fun to see a basketball floor inside of a football dome. So yeah,
for sure, yeah. I can't count the amount of times I've heard on a broadcast where the announcers are talking about, oh, they're getting used to shooting in a football stadium. It's
yeah,
the so they just haven't done it the entire year. Now they're going to San Antonio to shoot in the Alamo Dome or
right,
whatever.
yeah.
And then so obviously you've gotten a chance. You grew up in Livingston. You got to be in the Birmingham area for the GSC, and now you're over in Montevallo. So you've gotten to live in different parts of Alabama. So if somebody was visiting the state for the first time, are there any places you would like any touristy places that you would recommend somebody to check out?
Definitely the Space Center in Huntsville. Really cool spot. Um, Obviously, and I think anybody who is a beach person would know this. I mean, Orange Beach and Gulf Shores are incredible. I mean, beautiful white sand beaches. It's great. And then also a little shout out to my hometown, Livingston, Diamond Gems and Miss Donna's. Great steak, best caramel cake I've ever eaten. So yeah, shameless plug there, but got to shout out the hometown.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. When I first moved here, I was so shocked because I'm kind of a beach person. I'm from New England, so I'm more used to like there's beaches in Rhode Island. I didn't know that the beaches here were like so popular. Like because I never
Hmm.
thought that Alabama or Mississippi were places where you go to the beach, but everybody's like, yeah, the
Yeah.
beaches are really nice here. So that was a fun tidbit to learn.
Yeah, I mean, if you go down to Gulf Shores, you'll meet people from everywhere. So yeah, it's kind of a hidden gem, but it's definitely worth the trip.
Awesome. And then we'll wrap it up with this question. So I'd be remiss if we didn't have a basketball question in here since it is your favorite sports, one of the sports you get to cover at Montevallo. So I know at the NBA level, every team they kind of have like an intro song for their starting lineup. So let's picture you're in the starting five for whoever your favorite college or NBA team is. So it could be Alabama basketball. So if you had to choose an intro song for your starting five, what would you pick?
The I don't know the name of the actual song, and I'm gonna out myself here for being a weeb, but the One Piece like fight song. It's just like a really good drum beat and really good horns, and it just gets me going and fired up. But yeah, that would be the one. That would be the one.
Okay, there we go. There we go. That's one of my favorite shows. So I understand the reference. So I get
Right.
it.
Yes. Okay.
I, yeah, I gotcha. I gotcha. Well, Blake, anyways, I really appreciate you coming on. I always like talking to people that are in a similar field to me, and it's just nice to be able to hear a little bit more about some of that background, whether it be at the conference office or at the campus level, where you don't really get to hear as much about it because it's not as you talked about, it's the man behind the curtain, so it's not the
Mhm.
players or the coaches, but it's still just as important. So appreciate you coming on and letting everybody know about what that side of the industry looks like.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. And if you're a student athlete out there, say thank you to your SID.
I hope you all enjoyed our interview today. Remember to like, share, and subscribe wherever content can be found. Stay tuned for what we have in store next time on Inside the GSC.